Okay, hi everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to the Studying Online event with KCLSU. At this event, we have Redwan, who's just going to run through a PowerPoint with you to give you some tips and sort of support that's available from KCLSU and from King's regards to studying online. We also have a live Q&A on the side that you'll be able to see. So send in any questions that you have. I'll answer them while the presentation is going on, but if there's any questions that Redwall might know a little bit better than me, I will ask them at the end. So if you want to save your questions for the end of the presentation, you can as well. So yeah, welcome, and Redwan, you can go ahead.
Hi everyone, welcome to KCLSU. So just a brief background about me. I'm currently doing a postgraduate degree at King's, and I also work part-time at the Students' Union as part of the Hubs team. So you might see me around when you start returning back to campus on the Hubs desks. So first of all, a big welcome to KCLSU. We're looking forward to you starting your King's journey and being part of the oldest students' union in the country. And in case you didn't know, all King students are automatically a member of the Students' Union. We are run by students, for students, and we are your home from home. And we can't wait for you to join our community. And I'm sure that there will be something for everyone when you do come. So now back to the main thing, tips for remote and online studying. The first tip is definitely routine, routine, routine. And there's a reason it's repeated. Like, this is so important. Separate your morning, afternoon, and evening, and it would allow time for work, it would allow time for rest and watching Netflix or Disney Plus if that's kind of more your thing. It breaks up the monotony of the day. I know, especially being at home all the time, it gets difficult to kind of separate what's going on, separate the days from each other even. So this could really help you, and it would really give you structure and organization. Even if you're using like a calendar system, if you break up your day into 3 chunks, it would help you kind of organize that a bit more. Similarly, if you make a to-do list for each day, it would really help you keep track of what needs to be done. And you can reward yourself for anything that you've completed or kind of ticked off with small breaks. And I've personally found it really helpful when you do have a to-do list to kind of see things being checked off. So that's definitely something I would keep in mind. Tip number 2, separating your living and working space. Ensure your working area is a separate space from where you relax, i.e. your bed, sofa, and whatnot. Studies show that having a designated space to do your work improves productivity by a lot. Setting up a desk, if you can, in your room or kitchen would be really helpful. I know when I started the whole lockdown, I basically resorted to doing everything from my bed, and it wasn't going great. So then I moved kind of everything to a different area of the house, and I saw productivity spike straight away. So that's really good to give yourself that mental barrier where this is like for me relaxing, and this is like a work area for me. So that's another tip I would keep in mind. Another weird tip is actually getting dressed. So staying in your pajamas or your kind of relaxing clothes, if you will, all day, it signals to your brain that it's time to relax. But getting dressed, it kind of mentally prepares you to do work. It tells your brain and body that it's time to study. But it's also kind of an important act of daily self-care that you practice every day. So that's also something I would try out. Tip number 3, getting involved, making the most of the contact time that is available to you, whether that's participating in seminar discussion, attending office hours if you have any questions, emailing your tutors, etc. Remember that all these things are there to support you and to help you where you need. And there's a host of different online kind of things going on that's kind of unique and tailored to every single school and department. So just make sure that you're utilizing them to their fullest ability. Another thing you could do is join a reading group. I know a lot of online ones have been popping up recently. I think King's has kind of subject-based ones too. So that's something you could explore, learning more about topics that interest you in an informal way. And it's a great way to make friends on your course or with people who have similar interests to you. Tip number 4. 4? I lost count. Never mind. Take time off. Go outside, take a walk, keep active, and release some endorphins. I think you cannot stress this enough, especially now where we don't have to move around a whole lot. but doing this really helps. A change of scenery would be a welcome distraction for your brain, and it would be good for not just your body but your mind too. And it's studies have shown that exercising or staying active generally, it really helps you perform at your mental peak. So that's something that I would not kind of ignore. And it gives you a chance to socialize, call your friends, attending any virtual or socially distanced events that you can, meeting people in your halls. This is important not just for your well-being, but for others too. And then last few slides, make sure you stretch and get up from your seat every so often. You can get like apps or reminders that kind of prompt you to do this. It's not good to be sitting kind of 24/7. It's not good for your back. Is your working area set up well? Look for online tips about how you can position your chair, laptop, desks, and everything because of ergonomics. Again, your body will thank you when you grow up. If you're in a shared working space, such as the kitchen table in your flat, make sure you have like some polite ground rules just to keep everything easy. You know, designate what area is yours, what's okay, not okay, etc. Socialize. Make sure you can't see if you can't see people in person, you can still do it online. You can call them, something of that sort. And remember, take it easy on yourself. It can feel quite intense, so don't feel bad if you're finding it hard. I'm sure everyone, most if not everyone, is finding it really difficult adjusting during this time. Reach out to your tutors, lecturers. If you're finding something difficult, they will have tips and they're here to support you. Make the best use of any lecture capture that we have, any online training, so you can go back to and easily access info and teachings. Speak to second and third year students, or even postgraduate students if you can, who've had to do this kind of studying in term 3 last year and kind of going into this period too. They would understand, and they will have they'll provide kind of a friendly year, and they would have some good tips that they would have figured out based on their experience too. And then the last few bits, well-being and advice. We have a host of well-being tips and guides and resources to help your well-being and support you through the ups and downs of your student life. We've got you. Know what you're going to go through, and we're here to help. We also have our confidential advice service, and our advisors provide free, confidential, and impartial academic advice to students who are facing academic issues affecting any issues affecting their studies. If you want to know more or have a question, these are some of the ways you can get in touch with us. I don't think you have to make a note of this because the presentation will be uploaded somewhere, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can also check out our website where we have like blogs on how to make the most of kind of the whole new environment. And if you have any other questions, feel free to send them through.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for that, Redwan. There's a lot of questions coming up on the chat. A couple of them I've answered that I'll just mention here are, will this event be recorded? And yes, you can find a recording of all of the sessions, this one and the other sessions that we have had on our YouTube channel. So the link is in the chat there if you want to find out. There's also quite a few questions that everybody has sent about lectures and seminars, whether they'll be online or whether they'll be in person, and how that will work. And basically that will be up to your department. So I think it would be easier for you to contact your department to get an answer on that, because as the students union, we don't really make any decisions regarding the lectures or seminars. So I don't think we would be the best people to answer those questions. So I would say always reach out to your department to find out a little bit more, and they will be glad to help you as well. So a couple of the questions that I think Redwan would be really good for you to answer are, so in terms of working somewhere different to relaxing, what would you recommend for people that are working in uni accommodation with desks in the room? Would you recommend using a study space in the accommodation block or a library instead?
It really depends, right? Because of the current situation, first and foremost, do what you think would be safest for you and people around you. So if you feel like going into a shared space would be risky or it would harm your mental health, then obviously by no means do it. So for me personally, I use a desk in my room. I kind of moved this into my room before I had it. And for me, just having the desk is really helpful. And I consciously try not to do anything that's not work in my desk, but undoubtedly that would be hard. So I think if you kind of combine some of the tips before, you would find it kind of easier to break the or create a barrier between work and study. So if you have a clear defined routine of between this time and this time, it's just work and no play. Even if you're in the same room, like it might be a bit difficult in the first few days, and I found it quite challenging in the first few weeks, in fact. But like now, I struggle to not struggle. Like I find it easier to work at certain hours of the day, whereas I struggle to concentrate in other hours because I've spent kind of a long time forcing myself to do work-related things between, let's say, 10 to 4 o'clock. So I would definitely recommend trying to set up a consistent routine rather than doing, I'll do 4 hours in the morning one day, 4 hours in the evening one day, etc. But again, it's different for everyone. So I would say try a few of the different tips that this presentation had and see what works best for you.
Great. There's also a question. Should we use a laptop or a notebook for writing down notes? What's better? And I guess that's a little bit more personal, but what do you think works better for you in your experience?
Well, yeah, I think that's a very personal kind of thing. So for me personally, while I enjoy typing a lot, it's not as flexible. So what I personally resorted to was a tablet with the pen, because it's like because I like having everything in a digital archive sort of thing. So personally, I preferred using a tablet where I can just like write, so something like Microsoft Surface, iPad Pro, what have you, because it gives you kind of the flexibility of annotate, sketch, and whatnot. But I would honestly say it's personal preference. I know a lot of humanities students can get away with kind of typing the notes because you need to kind of take notes at a very quick pace, and typing is quicker than writing. But I know if you're doing like any of the sciences or maths and stuff, if you're having to write equations, then typing isn't kind of as easy. Or if you're having to annotate lecture slides, it might be better for you to kind of handwrite the notes. So it really depends on personal preference, really. I would say if you're undecided between the two, maybe try both of them and see what you prefer. And what I think the more important thing is what you would go back on. So like any notes I wrote on physical paper, I would never go back to. But when I type up my notes, I knew that I would kind of go back and read it. Or when I would annotate PowerPoint presentations, I knew I would go back and look at it. So it just depends on what would help you the most, I guess.
Great. I think I'll also add to that. I was also a King's student until last year, so I did my undergrad in comparative literature at King's. And like Redwan said, I think a lot of humanities students do take notes on computer because it's a lot easier, and usually you go through quite a bit of content during your lectures. But what I used to do was to type up the notes on my laptop during the lectures, and then if I was revising, or maybe a couple of weeks later, if I wanted to go through any of the notes, I would go through the typed up notes that I made during the session and write them down on paper. But that's also just personal preference, because I know that typing I might forget what I've written, but if I write it down on paper, it makes it easier for me to remember it. But I would say, yeah, just try both ways out and see which one works for you. There's also quite a few questions about what are reading groups and how can you find them? So a lot of people are interested in finding out how to join reading groups and where you can find out a bit more about them.
So I can't remember any formal ones from the top of my head, because I think the presentation said as well they're quite informal. So it could literally be you getting together a bunch of people, and let's say you do I don't know. So I do political economy. So let's say that's your interest. So you set up a reading group around that subject, and literally what it would be is per week. Let's say there's 5 of us. There's one book that all of us pick that's about our topic. So let's say we pick kind of a famous economics book, The Worldly Philosophers, and we say all 5 of us, we're going to read this book. Come next week, we all get together, and then we just talk about what we read, what we thought of the book, what we found interesting, what we found challenging, etc. I know near the end of last academic year, some schools started kind of putting students together, but again, it's not like a formalized system that we have. I know some society, academic societies do similar things, but it's not like a set. And so this is where you go to find reading groups. It's literally like a very informal, casual thing, because that's what it's meant to be. It's not meant to be very formalized way of learning. So yeah, you can literally just set one up with your friends, find them online, or on like academic society pages and stuff. Or if there isn't one that exists, just set one up yourself.
Okay, great. Another question that we had, I think I'll answer this one, is how do we join posts in the student union, especially if studying remotely? And there was also another question surrounding student union, which is, can we start joining clubs and societies? And yes, you can start joining clubs and societies as a member right now. So if you have a look on the KCLSU website, you can find out more about all the societies that we have available to you. In terms of joining posts, if you mean by joining as a student officer, we had an event about that yesterday, and we'll have another event next Monday on what it means to be a student officer and how you get there. But there are elections throughout the year to become a student officer, but that's usually either alongside your degree, or you take a year out from your degree to do that. As well as if you want to take part in a society as a president or a treasurer, there are elections at the end of the year called the AGMs for societies, and you see a little bit more about that if you join a society, and they'll talk to you on how that process works. And Red One, they also had a question about confidential advisors at KCLSU. So someone wanted to know a bit more about how can they help us with academic issues, and if KCLSU advice help only with the academic issues, or if they help with other issues as well.
So it's primarily academic issues or things that affect your academic outcomes, if that makes sense. So if you have something going on that affects your academic kind of side of things at university, then definitely get in touch. But I would say, just as a rule of thumb, there's no harm in you getting in touch with advice anyway. The way you do that, there's a dedicated section on our website with like a host of different ways to get in touch with advice, depending on your urgency or depending on the nature of requests that you do have. Usually the most common one is there's a form that you fill in, and there's a processing time that takes up to 3 working days, and then someone from the advice team gets in touch with you. And then I can't give you like a standard way that everything's dealt with, because it's very kind of tailored to your own unique circumstances. So you'd be assigned a caseworker who would read through the information that you've provided them, and then kind of give you advice regarding what to do. Kind of common things that people get in touch with us for are EC. So they are called, those are not EC, sorry, they're called MCF here. So mitigating circumstances form. So if you have a deadline or an exam that you can't sit due to personal reasons, and you want to extend that, but you're unsure as to how you can do it, that's something you can get in touch with. Or let's say you want to appeal a decision that was taken by the academic board in your school, or like you've made an appeal, or you want to make an appeal, sorry. Again, you can get in touch with advice, and they would kind of guide you through the process. Or if you have a question about any of the academic processes, you can get in touch with advice and so on. So there's like a host of different reasons you can get in touch with advice for, and the response you get would very much be tailored to what you need. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. There's quite a few questions surrounding so events at KCL, and also questions about timetables and online classes and seminars. And like I said before, these questions are a little bit more tailored towards the university rather than the students' union. So I would say get in touch with your department or your course leader, and they'll be able to clear up those questions for you. There are a couple of questions as well about how do you find out about job opportunities through the university and through KCLSU?
Yeah, so on the Students' Union website, there is another dedicated page for jobs where we post any openings that we have. I believe there are some openings right now, but I might be completely wrong. But it's updated quite regularly, so you can check that out. I believe there might also be a mailing list that you can join up to, where we just notify you every time there's a job open. But you can just keep keep up to date with that page, and you should be good to go. Regarding the university as well, so in the upcoming few weeks and months, you should see a lot of advertisement about being ambassadors and helping out in KCL events. So that's something I would keep an eye out for. I don't recall there being a central kind of page where like everything university job wise is posted, because I know departments hire kind of on a departmental basis as well. So there's like a variety of different ways you can find job openings at the university. So for instance, my department, so the email newsletters that we would get, usually they would update us about any department specific jobs. So if there's like a policy research or policy intern position open that we can help out one of the lecturers, they would post that there. If there's any KCO ambassadors they're looking for, they would post it there. If the university is doing like a big event and they need volunteers or like anyone to help, they would post it there. So we had kind of that. I would imagine every school has something similar set up to kind of give every bit of information to their students. But for the Students' Union, I would definitely check out the website.
Great. Yeah, Kings will have ambassador programs, and someone also asked about widening participation. So they also hire widening participation ambassadors. So have a little look on the Kings website for that, and keep an eye on the KCLSU website for vacancies for us as well. There's one question which asks, how did you adapt to the sudden change between in-person learning and remote learning?
I think it's what I said in one of the earlier answers to the questions. There is no, like, some people might find it super easy to do it, right? But for me, the first, I would say even the first month and a half was like really difficult. So we stopped having lectures mid-March. I don't think I managed to get any proper work done until end of May even, to like adjust to the whole situation, to make sure my well-being and everything was kind of looked after, and so on. So I ended up extending a lot of my deadlines kind of further into the summer. So there's no like trick to adapting. Some people will find it really easy, and undoubtedly some people would find it quite difficult. It's just making sure that while you are making that transition, you're doing your best to look after yourself, because something that I was always told by others who helped me during this time is you can always retake an exam or like extend it, but you only get one life. So just make sure you're doing your best to prioritize your health and well-being first and foremost, and then just deal with every day as it comes.
Great, that's great advice. There's also a question from Suzanne. How do we join a Oh, sorry, not this one. We've already answered that one about the reading groups. There's a question, what's the difference between a lecture and a seminar in KCL?
So a lecture is usually someone just standing at the front, your lecturer basically, and just speaking at you. And it would be, let's say you have a module that's, I don't know, 50 people. The lecture would generally be all 50 of them in one big hall where the lecturer would go through like a presentation or like a slideshow or something of that sort, and just talk through information that you need to know for that week's material. The seminar would be broken up into smaller groups. So if there's 50 of you, let's say 5 groups of 10. So because it's smaller classes, there would be a lot more interaction between you and the lecturer, and between you and others in the seminar group. And that would be a lot less the lecturer speaking and kind of you all problem solving things that you've been taught for that week. So usually seminars have kind of problem sheets attached to it or discussion points, and then it can range from solve these before you come to class and then we'll discuss the solutions, or it could be these are the discussion points and then when you get to class everyone kind of discusses with each other. So that's kind of like the main difference. Seminars are more interactive and kind of more about doing the problems, whereas lectures are more about learning the problems or learning how to solve them.
Great, and I'll jump in here as well. During my degree, so I did comparative literature, and we would have lectures in the same way that Redwan said, so just the lecturer standing at the front, and you don't usually have a lot of participation in lectures. It's more about listening and then just sort of writing down your notes. But then we would have a seminar to go with that lecture as well, which is when it's a smaller group of you, and then usually we would sort of sit and talk about our interpretations of the books or anything like that. So yeah, seminar is a bit more interactive. There was one question which asked, do lecturers print off the lecture slides, or are they only available in a digital format? And that really depends on your department. There are a couple of departments which will give you a course pack for every module, and it will have the printed off text and the slides that you need. But most of the time, lecturers just ask that you use it online, and I think it's mostly just because of sustainability and to not have to print that off. I think with the circumstances at the moment, it will be a little bit different. So once again, yeah, just contact your department for those sort of questions. That was a really interesting question, which also asked, what would you recommend for students that are studying online from another country? How would you suggest to keep a routine given the different time zones?
Oh, that's a difficult one. See, I'm lucky because I'm from the UK, so I've never had to deal with that. Let me see. I honestly don't have kind of a good answer. The not so good answer is I know some of my friends, they kind of switched up their kind of I don't know how to describe it, but basically they switched up the sleep schedule sort of thing, but that's obviously not the healthiest thing to do. I would see if there's so firstly I would see contact the department and see if there's anything they could do to make kind of the whole situation a bit more accessible to you. So if let's say the lectures and stuff, they aren't interactive, then maybe it's not that big of a deal for you to kind of join them live and just see if you can catch up on lecture capture or something similar. If that is the case, then you have it slightly easier because then you can just like set up a routine as per usual. But if that's not a case, I would say see if you can switch up your schedule slightly to adjust. Obviously, that's not recommended. The other thing you can try, actually, a few friends of mine from America, they actually did this. So they set up a study group between themselves. So because everything was slightly skewed for them in terms of time, so they had a routine between themselves where they would kind of start studying at a similar time together. So then if they had any questions or they got stuck, they could bounce ideas off each other. So I think all of you should have Teams Microsoft Teams when you join. So literally what they used to do, and then sometimes we used to join in if we were awake at the same time, is they would create like a Teams channel between them, and then like it was super convenient because people would just like post questions whenever, and then there would be like a live call that you could just like join. So I would definitely recommend using technology to its fullest and see if you can take advantage of that to figure out a good schedule.
Great, yeah, that was quite a tough question. I think because we've never really had to experience something like this before, it's difficult to make proper recommendations. But I think, yeah, as Redwan said, see if you can find anyone in a similar situation than you. And I think something that's really useful is a lot of courses have Facebook groups where you can find people that are doing the same course as you, as well as you can find Facebook groups that are called KCL Freshers. So I would say have a look in them and make a post, maybe introducing yourself and saying what course you'll be doing. And that way you can find some people that might be in the same situation as you, or at least in the same course. So yeah, that would be my advice. There are a couple of questions surrounding what advice would you give to commuters who don't have flatmates around to study or socialise with? And I think that's finding those groups online would be a good way, as well as joining in societies or sports groups that you might be interested in. You'd be able to find some friends on there, or at least people that you have something in common with that you might be able to study with. There were also a couple of questions about the Welcome Fair. that is next week. And I'd just like to say, as I put in the comments, you can find out more about that if you just go to kclsu.org/welcome, or just download the Welcome app from the App Store, whether the Apple one or the Google Store. You can find it on there. There is also questions. Are there any societies one can join and participate in if we're studying remotely? Are the activities in person, or are there opportunities as well for students studying online? Redwan, do you know much about that?
Yeah, so I can't remember specific societies, but I know even last academic year, so in term 3 last year, a lot of societies started doing events online. So that's not something I would worry about. If you do want to formally join a society, i.e. kind of paying membership and whatnot, before you do make that purchase, just like have a look at what the society has to offer. I imagine they've ramped up the virtual kind of sessions a lot more than last time, given that we've been in this situation for a lot longer, and I believe they've received specific training as well on how they could kind of make things more accessible online. So that's definitely not something I would worry about, whether you're studying remotely in the UK or even if you're in a different country. I think we had this question and concern repeated a few times in the past few sessions. So that's not something I would particularly worry about, because I think societies are trying their best to kind of make a lot of it accessible virtually, or as much as possible.
Great. Yeah, I think a lot of people are taking the sort of online first approach, where they're making everything digital first and making sure to cater for everyone that's studying online or studying remotely, and then holding some physical in-person events as well. There was one question, which is it allowed to record our lectures so that we can listen to them later on? And from my personal experience with lecturers at King's, it really depends on the lecturer, and I think something that you have to do is just ask the lecturer first to see whether they're okay with it. The majority of them will be, but there's also a little bit of a, not a stereotype, but lecturers might be a little bit taken aback if you do ask them, just because they might think that you might not listen to the lecture. But I think if it's a lecturer that you can have a good rapport with, and maybe just explain that you find it a lot easier to listen back to your recordings. Redwan, did you have anything to add to that as well?
Yeah, I would say definitely ask before you record, and this might be more relevant to certain courses than others. So for instance, there was one lecture where we were explicitly told not to record because we had special guests come in every week, and the school had like a particular agreement with those guests as to like what was going to be spoken about, what would stay in the room, what would leave outside the room. And then I know some of my friends who do medicine and stuff, there are some parts of the lecture that they aren't allowed to record or isn't captured by lecture capture due to kind of legal reasons and stuff. So I would say the best thing you could do is what Sophia said, is just like ask before you do it. If you explain why you're doing it rather than I just want to do it for the sake of it, generally speaking, they're quite understanding, so they should be okay with it.
Great. And as well, in terms of lectures, someone asked, where can we buy books being used in our course? So where do you find it easy to buy books, or secondhand books as well? Before passing that question on to you, I would say in my course and in my faculty, actually, in the whole faculty, they had a sort of system where second year students would kind of email around the department saying that they had books that they wanted to give away for free or sell to first year students. So email your department and see if they've got any students that have messaged them saying that they've got those books available, and you might be able to buy them off someone from second year, or even just get them for free. I know I gave away loads of my books for free to first and second year students. So just email your department and see if anyone's gotten in touch. As well as a couple of departments will have a department common room, and in a couple of the common rooms they'll have a bookshelf where people trade books for free. So all you have to do is just leave a book when you take one, and you usually find your course books on there. But Redwan, did you have any advice for this as well?
No, I would just stress what you said, and I think the only thing I would add is just make sure you're utilizing like the King's facilities as well. Obviously, like with the current circumstances, I appreciate not everyone might want to kind of borrow a physical book, but we have like a lot of digital books available as well. And alongside kind of the King's Library, there's a lot of other libraries that you can get access to via like requesting and whatnot. And there's like other services like Senate House Library, British Library, and whatnot that you can get access to. So I'll just make sure that you exhaust your options as to like trying to access it before you do buy, for like a lot of reasons. Like I remember when I was in first year for my undergrad, so this is like a while back, like 4 or something years ago. Like I bought so many books just because it was on the list that I never needed kind of to use. So I'll just make sure that you're just being smart with your money, kind of going in, because I think starting university, it's easy to kind of get excited and just be like, oh, I want to be as prepared as I can be and just buy like every book I can. But I wish someone had told me this. Like a lot of times, there might be a large portion of your reading list that you don't end up kind of getting. So I would definitely, first of all, wait till your first lecture, because like my lecturers would say, okay, this is your reading list, but these 2 are the core textbooks. The other kind of 5 you can just ignore, sort of thing. So just wait for that, and then just utilize the different options available to you before you try and make a purchase.
Great, that's good advice. And also, if you do need it, and you've sort of spoken to your lecturers and you know that you really need that book, I would say have a look at websites like abebooks.co.uk, where you can get things secondhand, and they're usually quite cheap. So try and get them secondhand as much as you can, as well as have a look on the library facilities, because a lot of the time you have free access to these books digitally anyway. There's a question here: how do the different campuses work? How would you recommend getting to know where things are, especially for commuters who will not be going in that much?
So for me, because I work at KCLSU and I work in Hubs, so Hubs is like, I don't know if everyone knows what it is, but just briefly, we're like the people who sit on the KCLSU desks. So we're dotted around all the different campuses, and because I'm a shift leader, so essentially I'm a supervisor, I'm just kind of familiar with all the different sites. So that's kind of by luxury of my job, that I know all the different campuses. If you're a student, generally speaking, most students are familiar with, or more familiar with, the campus that they're based on. And from the top of my head, the average King student, or like the bulk of you, would spend time on one of 3 campuses, and that would be either Waterloo, Bush House, or Guy's campus. Guys, if you're in like the medical sciences and that kind of stuff, Waterloo for like the other sciences like chemistry, physics, and so on, and Bush House / Strand for like everything else. And essentially, the way you, if you're based on a campus, you just like automatically get to know the ins and outs of like the campus. And obviously we have signposting and everything up on each campus, but the other way you start getting familiar with the other campuses are by joining societies. So a lot of societies, they would host events in the different campuses. So it would never just be, we're only doing events in Bush House, because we have like over 300 groups, right? So in terms of spaces, we're kind of limited. So groups would end up booking across multiple sites. And then when you go to these events, you just kind of figure out what the campuses look like and where everything is. But I think as long as you can kind of find your way around the campus you're based in, you should be good to go. And if you ever get lost, there'll be directions up. And then again, worst case, there's always the Hubs desk. So you can just like come by and just ask us where something is, and we can point you in the right direction.
Great. There was a link as there was a question about I did check out the link, so about Welcome Fair, so how to sign up for it. So I'll just go through. So on kclsu.org/welcome, you can see all the events and learn a little bit more about Welcome Fair. And the way that you can join the fair is by downloading the KCLSU Welcome app. So if you type that into your app store, you'll be able to see that and download it. It's totally free. And all you have to do is just create an account with your picture, your name, and you'll be able to chat with other students. So you can even meet other people from your course on there as well. So I'd recommend, even if you don't want to attend most of the events, you can meet people from your course there. but also to visit the events, you'll be able to see a list of the events. So all you have to do is just register, and then the events will be available on the 25th, 24th, 25th and 26th next week. So just keep an eye out for that. But if you still have any questions about the Welcome Fair, just email hello@kclsu.org and we'll be able to help you with signing up, especially if you're having any issues with your login or anything like that. So yeah, that's that for the Welcome Fair. And someone's also asking for the links for the books, so I will post that on in the chat for you in a second. Someone said, what is the process of joining societies? And someone had also asked whether you need to pay for a membership, and if the membership covers the entire time when you're a student, or if it's annually as well.
Yeah, so the easiest one is annually. Yeah, generally speaking, most memberships are annual memberships, so you'd have to renew them every year. So there's a few different ways you can join the societies, and it depends on how complicated the society wants to make it. So sports societies, they have a bit more complex memberships due to the nature of kind of how they operate and the services they provide, but it could be split by term. It could be split by kind of events, etc. So there's like a few different ways. The most common one though is, like I said, the 1-year membership that you buy as a one-off purchase. So there's a few different ways you can join. You can just be on the mailing list, and that would be for free, which is literally you signing up to receive emails from the society. And almost all societies, including sports ones, they do some kind of free, just pop in and see if you like it, societies, events throughout the whole year. So if you haven't had a chance to kind of experience what a group does in the first term, don't worry, in the second term, they will do similar things. So that's just something you could do, see if a society is for you. Some societies, if you do pay a membership, they provide benefits such as discount to their paid events, discounts in other places they have partnerships with, and so on. So that's kind of ways they incentivize memberships. And again, the other way they incentivize memberships is memberships go towards the groups running an event. So imagine I pay £2 for to join a society. That money is then going towards the group putting together more events for the membership. So again, these are the different ways you can kind of partake. And yeah, to answer the first question, no, you don't have to pay per se to join a society, but almost every society, they have like exclusive member only things that you won't be able to kind of take part in unless you are a paid member of the society.
Great, yeah, and there's lots of free societies, so make sure you check out on the KCLSU website. There were lots and lots of questions about how to keep focused and not get distracted when working on a laptop, and like any ideas that you had in terms of keeping yourself to schedule and studying for a certain amount of hours as well, and just not getting distracted by other things that are on your laptop or just by wanting to go out. So if you have any tips of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I forgot the name of this this technique. It's something like I think it's calendar blocking. I can't remember exactly if that's what it is. So record the first tip or one of the earlier ones where you split your day into like morning, afternoon, evening. It doesn't have to be like that exact way, but split it in some sort of way, and then designate the split where it would be work. And then what we tend to do is say we're going to work for 2 hours, right? But that's not very good for productivity. So one of the ways that kind of people I personally kind of look up to or like think get a lot done in, like people like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, etc. This is a technique a lot of them use, which is calendar blocking. So they specify the tasks that they would be working on in their calendar. So instead of saying I'm going to do 1 hour or 2 hours of studying, I say something like I'm going to do half an hour of kind of getting everything together. I'm going to do half an hour of reading. I'm going to do 1 hour of writing, right? And I have a to-do list to accompany that to kind of tick off things as I go along. And psychologically as well, if you rather than doing one big task, your brain finds it easier to do multiple smaller tasks. So obviously, not small as in like open the document, save the document. Like that's really minor, and like everyone's golden spot is kind of unique to them. But I would just say rather than trying to tackle big tasks like, I don't know, revise this week, break it down into smaller actionable things that you can do and tick off. And then in terms of how you plan your time in your calendar, don't just say I'm going to do work. Say like I'm going to spend half an hour to do this. I'm going to spend 1 hour to do that. And one thing that I like find helpful are like alerts that come up, because it's like it puts me on a kind of timer to finish a certain task rather than procrastinate before I can move on to the next thing. And I know if I don't get everything done in time, I don't get to have my relaxation at the end of the session. So it's in my best interest to kind of get everything out of the way. But make sure you schedule in kind of breaks as well between those work sessions. So one really effective way I find is the Pomodoro technique, which is, the most common one is you do, I think 25 minutes of work or 20 minutes of work, 5 minutes break or something like that. You can kind of adjust it as you go along. And there's like a few different websites or free apps that you can use to do those. And then in terms of getting distracted on your laptop, the best thing is to find free app. There are some free apps and browser extensions that you literally click on, and then it blocks certain websites, notifications, and so on, and it goes into like a focus mode while you're in that app. So I would maybe try some of those as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think I also used the Pomodoro technique actually when I was studying, and I found that really helpful. But I'm also someone that gets distracted quite easily, especially if I'm on my phone or if I'm studying on my laptop or something like that. So I would always say, like, shut down all of your tabs and just keep the tabs open from whatever you're studying, whether that's like you're reading something online. And if you don't need the internet, if you're just like making notes or reading through your notes, just turn your Wi-Fi off and turn your 4G off, and just make sure that you're just focused on the task. I think sometimes it can be really, really tempting to look at your phone, and then you end up kind of in a spiral where you're just scrolling through social media and you can't stop. So if that's you, I would say turn your phone off if you can, or put your phone in do not disturb mode, because that way you won't be able to see the notifications kind of popping up on your phone, and that will make you less likely to want to go and sort of scroll through on social media. So that's just what I did. There are a couple of questions. We'll take just a few because we're almost at the end of the session. There are a couple of questions on how many societies do you recommend joining in order to balance academic and social life? So is there a specific number that you'd recommend?
I don't think there's like a specific number per se, because we got asked this a lot in the last few sessions. It would really depend on kind of your timetable, how you manage your day, etc. So there isn't a specific number I can give you, but as someone who's kind of finished their undergrad and now doing postgrad, I think Sophia can kind of speak to this as well. Generally speaking, people join the most groups and societies in their first year. That gets whittled down in the second year, and then like narrowed down even more in the final year, because like as university progresses, you naturally get busier. You figure out who your circle of friends are. Like you're more kind of set on what, or like more clearly what you want to do and what you like, what you don't like. So I would definitely say first year is like explore as much as you can, figure out what you like, what you don't like, as you definitely get a lot busier in your second and third year. But there isn't like a number I would put, like 10 in the first year, 5 in the second year, etc. It's like it depends on the person really.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think I was one of those people that when Welcome Fair came around, I got so interested in so many societies, and I joined like 15 or 20, and I just put my name down for everything because I really wanted to take part. And for me, because I also had a part-time job when I was a student, that wasn't necessarily the best idea. I think I just joined too many and I was too keen. So I kind of started adapting the societies that I was the most interested in to my schedule. But as Redwan said, it really, really does depend on you and what you kind of keep up with and what kind of things you're interested in, because sometimes you might find that a society that you thought that you were really interested in might not be what you wanted to join, or maybe something that you didn't think you'd be super interested in might be exactly what you were looking for. So just attend a couple of sessions, and then if you're not too interested, you can always stop attending, especially if it's a free membership, then there's no sort of commitment there from you. As well as quite a few societies that are paid, you can do taster sessions. So that's really handy so that you don't spend any money, and you can do a free taster session, see whether you like it or not, and then commit to further sessions or commit to paying. There was another question about how much extra study outside of lectures do you do on average? So what would be, how much time do you take aside to like study outside of going to lectures and seminars?
Again, I don't think there's like a golden number that everyone should follow. It would really depend on how much time you need. Like, some people, they find it really easy to grasp new concepts or learn things, and they might spend little to no time in doing it and just like cram before an exam, and it works for them. Some people need a bit more time, and that's okay too, to get like a more in-depth understanding. So it would really depend. I think your like the tip I would give you is just like see how much work you need to do whilst maintaining a healthy kind of balance of recreation, relaxation, and work, and just do that. Like, don't feel like pressurized into I need to like study all the time, etc. Your course, like a good way to for me, I found, to know how much work I need to get done is if I have 4 lectures per week, do I have I spent the time to go through the problem sets or the seminars of all 4 of them, and is there anything that I like just do not understand at all? If I've covered everything and there's nothing I don't understand at all, whether I've spent 2 hours studying, whether I've spent 4 hours studying, it doesn't really matter to me. But what I would say is, in the long term, just make sure you're putting in a consistent amount of time. I know some people, me included, I can't help but cram. I don't know what it is about me, because every year I say, oh, I'm never leaving it till last minute. But I always end up leaving it till last minute, and then I end up regretting it, but then I do it again. It's a bit of a weird relationship I have with that kind of thing. But just see what works for you. I would always say consistent kind of work is better than cramming it, because it's less stressful on you. But there isn't like work 4 hours per week. Just as long as it's consistent and you're getting the work done, you should be fine.
Great. There was one question which said, I'm sorry if this was previously answered, but is there a study area open at the uni right now? For instance, are the libraries open? I would say, before Redwan answers, we do have our own study spaces at KCLSU. So in Bush House, we have quite a bit of study space, which should be open for you now. In terms of the library, don't quote me on this. I think that they will open for students, but I would say, as with everything, have a look on the library website, as well as the library have their own Twitter account. So have a look on there and see what they're saying in terms of studying, because once again, as a student union, we don't necessarily make any decisions on that. So it would be better for you to sort of reach to the source. But Redwan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, yeah, just like reiterating what you said, your school should give you like a bit more guidance when you do start formally as to like what study spaces are available. And it doesn't have to be like Library Kings has like a lot of study spaces dotted around like the various campuses. KCLSU has a few study spaces dotted around like the different sites that we operate in. Just make sure that whatever you're picking, whether you're studying from home or coming into campus, just make sure that you do so like looking after your own well-being and like health. As long as you're happy with the risks that you're taking, then that's good.
Great. And I think this might be our last question, but this is something that you might have answered before, but just in case you have anything specific for this, is any tips for postgrads who have previously studied normally and now have to adapt to studying online or distance learning?
Oh, I think pretty much the same things as I would say in the slide, sorry, like the same tips would apply. Personally, I have, like, this is like a very personal opinion, and I'm sure it would vary from different courses, but I found the transition like once I got through it, I didn't find it that bad compared to what I thought how bad it would be. Only because a large element of my course was self-taught. So there wasn't anything particular that I was missing out on. The good thing was office hours, they increased slightly for all my lecturers, which helped me out. And again, by the time I finished, I mainly had essays left. So it's things I could get done in my own time. The only thing that might be different is if you're a postgrad, then that means that your workload is slightly kind of heavier than the undergrads kind of might have it. So I would definitely say plan ahead a bit more than you would in advance. Only because it can get extremely repetitive in terms of what you do. And by planning ahead in advance, you can kind of prepare yourself mentally for what's to come, and always add in kind of spillover time, because I've personally found, like in undergrad, I was very good at saying, okay, I'm going to do this particular lecture or this particular problem, and it's going to take me half an hour. And generally speaking, I would get it done in that time or finish it earlier than I would think. But in postgrad, I underestimated how long it would take me a lot more. So if I said I would take 1 hour to do it, it would never take me 1 hour. And it took me like a good month or so before I would start getting accurate estimations. So I would say when you start out, definitely give yourself more time than you think you would need. So if you're like, I can do this in 1 hour, just give yourself 1 hour, 30 minutes. Worst case, you have more time to relax if you finish early. So that's just something I would keep in mind.
Great. And I think the last question that I'll answer is a really quick one is, do we need an ID card to access the various campuses and libraries? And yes, you do need an ID card to get in. So all of the campuses are protected at the entrance. So there'll either be security guards, or we have like turnstiles where you touch your card to get in. So you should have received an email from King's about collecting your ID, or if you haven't received that yet, you should receive that soon. But if you have any issues, do get in touch with your department and with King's as well. They'll be able to help you in terms of IDs. But yeah, we only have 3 minutes left, so I think we've gone through a lot of the questions. But once again, I'll just reiterate, because we weren't able to answer all of the questions, unfortunately. If you do have any questions and you feel like it's not been answered, do get in touch with us at hello@kclsu.org, or have a look through our website and the pages that are on there to see if anything kind of answers your questions. If you have any welcome specific questions, just have a look on kclsu.org/welcome, and you'll be able to clear up most of your questions, and on the Welcome app as well. And I think that's it from me. Redwan, do you have anything else to add?
Not really. We just look forward to seeing you all very soon. And if you're about on campus, make sure you pop by the Hubs desk and say hello to whoever's sitting there.
Great. Thanks so much, Redwan, for taking the time and answering all these questions. And thanks everyone for attending. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you, and welcome to King's.